I want to welcome everybody. My name is Nicole RJ Rejiester, and this is the first in my series of videos on poker psych principles. What we're going to be talking about today specifically is mindset and a downswing. And to start off, I have a series of graphs that some of you may be able to relate to. As you can see, this first one is not great, 250 games played downswing with a couple of peaks in there. And if you have had a graph like that before, I imagine that you can empathize that it feels somewhat like this. You feel a little bit sick when all you see is your graph going straight down. A little more common, I think, is a graph like this, where there's a lot of peaks and valleys. It's kind of like being on a roller coaster. Almost looks like the strip on a heart attack monitor, which I can imagine might be how some people might feel as they constantly watch their results go up and down and up and down. And again, some sympathy for feeling that it might feel something like this. And finally, I found a graph that I hope nobody can really relate to, at least not in terms of money lost. But this is a significant downswing. You can see the graph pretty much goes straight down for 4,500 games for a loss of almost 500,000, with only a couple of slight peaks on the downswing. And I imagine that whoever this graph belonged to might have felt something like this.
No, please, no more, no more. Dad, I'm scared.
Obviously kind of a little joke there with the Family Guy clip, but that kind of amount of loss over that many games played is what we would call a downswing. What do we mean by when we say a downswing? A downswing is a period of time and or hands where no matter how well you are playing, you are losing session after session, hand after hand. Your coin flips seem to be always losing. It feels like every time you have a draw, you're not getting there. Every time your opponent has a draw, they are getting there. And no matter what you do or how well you play, you're ending the session with less money you had than when you started. Now, as anybody who's played poker for a significant amount of time will be able to tell you, is that downswings are inevitable to a certain extent. And we're going to talk about that from the mathematical perspective of it. Since downswings are inevitable, how you deal with them, how you think about them mentally, how you respond to them emotionally when they do happen is something that can go a long way toward making you a winning player and a good player. Like any skill in poker, achieving and maintaining an appropriate mindset even when the math is running against you, even when you are losing your coin flips, even when every idiot with a flush draw is getting there. How you approach the game when your results are not as good as they mathematically would be expected to be will make you a better player, and it can be done as long as you're willing to put in the work and the practice necessary to keep a proper mindset. So what are the goals for this training? First, you want to understand how the way that you mentally approach the game during a mind swing can either prolong it or make you recover more quickly. We're going to discuss how modifications to your thoughts and beliefs about poker in general and about a downswing specifically can help you reduce tilt and ensure that your downswing is as short and as painless as possible. And finally, we're going to talk about a few tips and strategies for dealing with downswings and the motions involved, which will hopefully get you on your way toward being able to maintain an appropriate mindset even when you are in a downswing, even a short downswing, even a downswing of a couple days or a couple sessions. The more frequently you can maintain the appropriate mindset, even when your profit graph is going down, even when your expected EV graph is going up, if you can learn to deal with that appropriately, it will improve your game immensely. First, however, take a few minutes here to introduce myself. As I said at the beginning, my name is Nicole. I go by Sergeant RJ online, and germane to this particular video series is the fact that I have a psych background. I have a master's in counseling psychology, and I'm currently working on my PhD in counseling, which is sort of a subset of psychology. Throughout the course of my training and my education, my experience, I've worked with, literally dozens of clients with a pretty wide variety of issues. And the whole reason I'm telling you this is so that you can get an idea of where I'm coming from in terms of talking about psychology principles, so that you can decide whether or not I'm worth listening to on this topic. I wouldn't do a heads up, sit and go video, because that's not where my expertise lies. I'm not very good at heads up sit and goes. By the same token, I think if somebody's going to talk about psych principles, talk about maintaining a proper mindset, talk about how you can not tilt, it's important to know where their background is in psychology. On a side note too, I'm also a moderator on the 2+2 poker forums. I'm currently a moderator in news, views, and gossip, which means I do spend a decent amount of time talking with some people in the poker community, although not necessarily about poker itself. If you know NVG, you know that the poker discussion in there can be limited. So with that in mind, now that we've been introduced, let's get down to business. And of course, little cute kitty wearing a tie, can't go wrong there. So first, we want to sort of define and understand what a downswing is. Assuming that your play is optimal, assuming that you're continuing to play your A game, and that your A game is in fact a winning game, then the downswing is simple variance. Now obviously it doesn't really feel like simple variance when you lose 10 flush draws in a row, when you lose 7 coin flips in a row, when you lose 20,000 hands, you're losing money over those 20,000 hands, even though your all-in expected value is winning. When you think about it from a mathematical perspective, you have to understand that just because something is rare, it's rare to pick up aces 5 times in a row, just because something is rare doesn't mean that it's not going to happen. I found the example online. The odds of winning a Mega Millions jackpot is approximately 1 in 176 million. If you buy a ticket, obviously that means that the odds that you personally are going to win is extremely low. However, if there are enough repetitions, if they sell enough tickets, if they sell 250 million tickets, the odds are that somebody is going to win. So just because this event is extremely rare and it's not likely to happen to you, doesn't mean that it's not going to happen. And it is going to happen to somebody. Now, obviously most people would much rather win a Mega Millions jackpot than go on like a 25K hand downswing. But just because it's not mathematically likely for you to lose money over that period of time when you're playing your A game, doesn't mean it's not going to happen. Although, when it does happen, I imagine it feels a lot less like winning the lottery and a lot more like being hit by lightning. So, if you've drawn the mathematical short straw, what does that mean? Does it mean that you're just incredibly unlucky? That's a mindset I think a lot of players take. If they look at their chart and they see that they're supposed to be winning based on the math, but they're currently losing, they start to think and feel as if they are basically just unlucky. And we're going to talk in depth over the next couple slides about why that's a very destructive mindset to take. It's important to bear in mind that, at least from a mathematical perspective, there's no such thing as luck. One-outers will hit. Mega Millions jackpots will be awarded. Just because it's not very likely to happen doesn't mean that it's not going to happen. From a mathematical perspective, it's unfortunate that for you personally that you're losing money, but there's nothing lucky or unlucky about it. The poker gods don't hate you. The site isn't rigged against you. It's just variance. Now, why is that kind of important to understand? You can't control your luck per se, but what you can control is your attitude about the downswing, about your game, about what you can do to ride out the downswing and improve your game. If you can take the appropriate mindset and if you can maintain your focus on what you can control as opposed to on what you can't control and label it luck, it's going to make it far more likely that your downswing is going to end at the earliest possible opportunity. I want to talk more about the concept of labeling your downswing as bad luck and why that's so destructive to your poker game overall. Typically what happens when you label something mentally as bad luck is that there's two likely follow-ups to that thought. The first one is, I've been running really bad lately, I've been getting really unlucky, so obviously I should be due for some good luck soon. What that often leads to when you think that way in poker is that you start chasing your soon to be coming good luck. You start playing in a way that's suboptimal because you expect that because you've been lucky the last 10 sessions, you should be lucky this session. You start chasing your draws. You start playing in a way that's not your A-plus game. And what that is more likely to lead to is it's more likely to lead to your downswing continuing, to your bad luck continuing, than it is for you to suddenly miraculously snap out of your bad luck and suddenly have good luck. If you're playing bad poker, it's much more likely that you're going to continue to see bad results than that you're going to see good results. Now, the second thing that often happens when somebody's been thinking to themselves, man, I've just been getting really unlucky lately, is they start to believe that instead of I'm going to become lucky soon in the future, they start focusing on the fact that they've been unlucky and believing that that bad luck is going to continue. If you assume that you're going to continue to be unlucky, that also will lead to suboptimal play. That will also lead to you playing bad poker, although it's usually different from if you're chasing good luck. Usually what happens in a situation like this is that players tighten up too much. They start playing in ways that they lose a lot of value from their very good hands because they're playing them in a way that minimizes value because they're trying not to lose anymore. They're trying not to take another bad beat. They're trying to do whatever they can in their power to stop being unlucky. And again, since there's really no such thing as luck, they're focusing on the wrong thing. They should continue to focus on making optimal plays. And if instead you focus on your bad luck and the assumption that your bad luck is going to continue, you're going to end up playing in a way that it makes that likely to be true. It's going to become a self-fulfilling prophecy because you are in fact now playing worse poker. And again, same as if you're chasing good luck, the results of playing worse poker is usually worse results. So what does all of this talk about bad luck and how that's bad for your game? What does it actually mean? It's important to bear in mind that you can't control variance, but you can control how you think about your results and how you approach your game. It's important in poker, it's always important in poker to focus on what you can control as opposed to what you can't control. Focusing on what you can't control, the results, is what leads to tilt. It's what leads to prolonging your downswing. So what you want to do is focus on your decision making and your mindset in approaching your game. If you can eliminate the sort of magical thoughts and irrational thoughts like, I'm due for some good luck, or like, I'm really unlucky and I'm never going to be lucky again because I'm just an unlucky person, if you can eliminate that kind of magical thinking, it's going to be much more likely that you're going to be able to focus on continuing to play your best poker, even if your results aren't very good right now. And if you're playing good poker, your results are more likely to rebound much more quickly than if you engage in magical thinking about your luck. It's also important to bear in mind that maintaining a positive mindset and continuing to focus on the things that you can control helps prevent tilt. It helps prevent you from getting too frustrated and too upset. And if you can maintain a positive mindset and reduce tilt, it's going to make you more positive and more motivated to play. And that's a really important consideration when you're in a downswing. How many times, if you're in a downswing, are you motivated to go play? Are you dreading, either going into the casino or sitting down at your computer because you're afraid of what's going to happen? If that's the case, then you have some work to do on your mindset and your attitude that if you can accomplish that, if you can improve those things, are going to make it much more likely for your poker game to improve and for your downswing to last a much shorter period of time. Now, I mentioned before, changing your thoughts, but this is one of those things in life that is easier said than done. Kind of like trying to get a cat to take a bath. It's easy to suggest, let's go put the cat in the bathtub. But for anybody who's ever owned a cat, I can tell you, it's not actually very easy to do that. So, how do you go about maintaining a proper mindset in a downswing? What are the things that you can focus on that will help you maintain an appropriate mindset? The things that you can focus on fall into two basic categories. And those two categories are your game, which we're going to talk about briefly, and your head. And what I mean by your head is what you're actually thinking and feeling while you're playing, while you're analyzing your hands, while you're getting ready to play. That's what I mean when I say your head. So the first thing that you can focus on in a downswing is your game. And it's important to be honest about your assessment of your game. And I don't say that because, some people do lie to themselves about how good they are. But I'm going to assume that if you're watching a video, that you have a sincere desire to improve your game and to get better. The fact that you can't necessarily find all your weaknesses and find all your leaks isn't some sort of personal failing. It's just sort of human nature for us to have blinders on when it comes to our own mistakes and our own weaknesses and our thought processes. If you think about it, I'm sure you've had to write a paper for either high school or college before, and if you went back and reviewed it for spelling and grammar mistakes and turned it into your professor, it's likely you got the paper back and there were still a couple of spelling and grammar mistakes. And the reason for that is that your brain tends to fill in what it thinks you meant. You know what you meant, so your brain kind of overlooks the obvious mistake and continues on its way. The same can be true of your poker game. If you knew there was a flaw in the way you were approaching a specific hand or a specific set of circumstances, you wouldn't be thinking that way. You would have already fixed it. So it's oftentimes very difficult for you as an individual to be able to find and plug all of your own leaks. Now, I'm not a poker coach. I'm not going to be able to tell you where all your leaks are because it's not really my specialty. But I do know some ways you can go about finding other people that can help you work on your leaks. And some of those include, just if you have other poker playing friends and they're solid players, talking to them about specific lines, about specific hand histories and sets of circumstances. You can also, post on online poker forums. As I already mentioned, I'm a moderator on the 2+2 poker forums. They have a lot of different strategy, that's keyed toward a lot of different variety of games, so you can post specific hand histories in strategy forums. And finally, you can also hire a coach, even if it's only for the short term, even if it's only to do a few hand histories or session reviews. Having somebody else looking at your game is often a crucial way for you to recognize and identify leaks so that you can go about plugging them. Now, the second thing you want to focus on so that you can maintain an appropriate mindset in poker, even during a downswing, is you want to focus on your mindset. And it's important to honestly assess where you're at mentally. Now, this isn't easy. I mean, it's no more easier than giving a cat a bath. If you knew where your mental leaks were, again, just like if you knew where your poker leaks were, you plug them, right? So it's important to understand that figuring out where some of the leaks are in your mental process can be just as difficult as finding where your poker leaks are. One of the first things that you can start doing on your own is you can, as you're playing or as you're reviewing your hand histories, you can actually try to monitor how you're thinking about the game. You see the term internal dialogue on your screen, and that's one of those psychobabble terms that we like to use. But what that means is that everybody, as they're doing things, as they're going about their life, as they're playing poker, is carrying on a mental dialogue in themselves, your sort of background thoughts. And you're usually not that aware of them. You just do them automatically. But oftentimes some of those thoughts aren't really in line with reality. They're distorted. There's some irrational thoughts in there. So if you can actually try to monitor your internal conversation, the way you talk to yourself in your head, you might be able to find some spots where you're thinking about things in a way that doesn't really match up very well with reality. And I've got a couple of examples about this as it applies to a downswing on the next slide. Alright, have you ever found yourself thinking anything like these? We've already talked about, thinking that you're either the luckiest or the unluckiest player. You think that this downswing is the worst thing that could possibly ever happen to you. You're thinking about how bad your opponents are, that if these donks would just play correctly, I'd be doing great because I'm great and these guys all suck. These are the type of thoughts that if you can identify them as they're occurring and challenge them and, say to yourself, like, look, this isn't really the way I should be thinking about this. Instead of thinking I'm the unluckiest player in the world, you should be thinking this is variance, and if I play my A game, it's going to end eventually. If you can do that, that will help you maintain the mindset necessary to continue to play your best game. And I just thought this was kind of a funny little clip. Because when you think about a lot of the thoughts that I had written on the last slide, they're very kind of self-pitying. Why is this happening to me? Why am I running so bad? Why do these donks suck so bad and they always suck out on me? Those are the kind of thoughts that if you can identify them and challenge them, would be really beneficial to your game if you could eliminate those type of thoughts. What do unrealistic and irrational thoughts lead to? Well, they lead to essentially tilt. I use, again, a psychobabble term, discordant emotions. But we're talking about stuff like anger, depression, frustration. All those emotions that people classically associate with tilt. Those emotions that if you think back to the original slides where I posted those graphs and those faces of people, they looked like they were sick or angry or just really disgusted. Unrealistic thoughts, irrational thoughts, help contribute to those emotions. Help make it much more likely that you're going to become angrier and depressed and tilting about your downswing. Those unrealistic thoughts also make it much more likely that reality is going to continue to clash with the way you're thinking. If you're thinking something like, I've been really lucky, I'm due to get lucky today, when you don't get lucky, in your own words, that's going to mean that what your expectation was, which is I'm due for some good luck, is going to clash with reality, which is going to make it much more likely that you're going to continue to tilt. It's going to make it much more likely that you're going to continue to experience a downswing. We already talked about how focusing on luck, focusing on irrational decision making ends up leading to suboptimal play, where you end up loosening too much to chase your losses from your downswing, or you tighten up too much because you're so angry and so frustrated and so scared of losing more money that you start playing like a complete nit because you don't want to get bad beat anymore. You shove all in with aces pre-flop because you'd rather pick up the blinds than actually extract maximum value from your premium hands. The unrealistic thoughts about your downswing and about what poker is supposed to be about, which is about math and making the correct rational decision, the more irrational thoughts you can find and eliminate, the much more likely you are to maintain emotional control and continue to play your best plus EV poker, no matter if you're in a downswing or if you're making money hand over fist. So what can you do? Sort of the concrete things that you can do that are the takeaway from these previous set of slides. You can focus on the reality of the situation if you're in a downswing. And again, if you're playing your best game and your best game is winning poker and that you're still playing your A game in spite of the downswing, then the downswing is variance. And it's important to bear in mind that it is variance. It's not luck. It's not bad luck. It's not the site is rigged against you. It's not the poker gods hate you. It's just the math. It's also important to focus on what you can control, which is your mindset, which is improving your game. If you can continue to maintain focus on the things that you can control, you're improving your game, continuing to make rational decisions, and if you can monitor yourself for irrational, magical thoughts about luck and about what should be happening, it makes it much more likely that your downswing is going to be of shorter duration and of less severity. And finally, something that you can do that I think doesn't always get enough attention is that you can take care of yourself both physically and emotionally. You can de-tilt when you need to. If you are getting frustrated despite doing your best to focus on rational decision making, then take the time that you need to de-tilt. Do something that you find relaxing. Take a break from your session. Don't come into your game, especially when you're on a downswing, especially when you've been experiencing the bad side of variance. Don't come to the game already frustrated. Don't start playing when you haven't had enough sleep, when you're hungry, when you've just had a fight with somebody. Don't set yourself up to make it more likely that your downswing is going to continue. Do what you need to do so that you approach your game in the healthiest possible way so that you can make the best decisions, that you can play your A+ game, and that you can get out of your downswing as quickly as possible. Now finally, since we've been talking about something that most people would consider, bad, which is a downswing, wanted to end this on sort of a high note, which is the bright side of a downswing is that they don't last forever. If you're at the bottom, there's no place else to go but back up. If you've been playing your A+ game, if you're a winning player and you're continuing to play winning poker, eventually the downswing will end. The mathematics will swing back your way. If you insist on thinking of it that way, eventually your luck will change. You can actually help make your downswing end more quickly by continuing to play the best poker possible, by continuing to work on improving your game and eliminating the kind of magical thoughts or irrational beliefs that can lead to suboptimal play, that can lead to you chasing your losses or tightening up so that you don't experience any more bad luck. If you can maintain a proper mindset and continue to make decisions that are based on math and rationality as opposed to on emotion and magical thinking about luck, then you are focusing on what you can control, and it's going to help your downswing end that much more quickly, which obviously is a good thing. You don't want to be in a downswing. And finally, obviously once you come out of your downswing, then you get to feel like this. And now that you're out of your downswing, we've reached the end of this presentation. I want to thank you all for listening. This, once again, has been Nicole, Sergeant RJ Rejiester. You can find me on the 2+2 forums as a moderator in NVG. I hope you've enjoyed and learned something from this presentation, and I look forward to giving you the next video on my video series, Poker Psych Principles.